Hi, welcome back. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to return to the subject of habits and breaking habits, really exchanging habits. So we're all creatures of habit. The secret to great success is to adopt successful habits and then just let them fuel you and feed you with more and more success. The problem a lot of people have is they've done just the opposite. They've adopted, for whatever reason, unsuccessful habits, habits that get us in trouble, habits that make us unhealthy, habits that slow us down or stress us out. So the whole idea to success is to adopt successful habits. Use habits for you, not against you. So I'm going to share a short passage from the book Habits Die Hard that I wrote with Mac Anderson, a wonderful simple truths book. And we're just going to start with chapter 1, which is really all about defining what it is we want to change. Define the habit. So step 1 is define, because you'll often hear me say vague is the enemy. You can't fix vague. And the problem with vagueness is it's confusing, all right? And it's just too easy to make excuses. So highly successful people are very clear, very focused, and it all starts with the definition. Define what we want and define what we don't want. Be very clear. So here we have a short reading. We cannot solve a problem we do not understand. Habits are merely a reflection of a deeper, more powerful, subconscious thought system. To change them, we have to learn to think differently, to see differently, and to believe differently. Therefore, it is not just the behavior we must identify and define. We must identify the underlying assumptions, perceptions, thoughts, and beliefs leading to the behavior. For example, if a person has a tendency to become impatient or angry, especially under stress, willpower and resistance to the behavior without a deep shift in thinking will not work. Anything we fight, we make stronger. Resisting the habit will only weaken us and eventually bring feelings of defeat and guilt and increased stress. This creates a vicious circle. The tendency to get angry and impatient will return, bringing with it an attitude of despair and weakness, leading to more anger. To effectively change habits, we have to learn to break the cycle. We must learn to change the ingredients that lead to the outcome. Think of this like baking a cake. To change the cake, we must change the recipe. Stop now and think about some of the habits that you want to change. There's an exercise here in the book that challenges us to do this. Stop right now and identify a repeated habitual behavior you would like to change. All right, we have to replace any habits that limit us with habits that empower and reward us. So stop and think about that. All right, and then there's a checklist here of things just to contemplate. All right, so and to do this, we think in terms of tendency, because the tendency reflects hundreds, if not thousands, of subconscious thoughts, thoughts that are going on habitually that we're not even aware of because they're subconscious. So a shortcut, so to speak, is to look at tendencies. What are some of your tendencies? These repeated patterns. And then from the tendency, we can drill down to the underlying thoughts that we need to change or delete, these programs that we run on subconsciously and habitually. So here are just a few examples of some tendencies you want to consider. I tend to become impatient in traffic, airport lines, waiting rooms, or with a slow computer. I tend to be impatient. I tend to resist change, new ideas, new relationships, or uncertainty. I tend to avoid taking risks or exploring new ground. I tend to procrastinate. I tend to eat too much or eat unhealthy foods. I tend to watch too much television or waste time on non-value-added activities. I tend to drink too much. I tend to jump to conclusions or assume the worst. I tend to judge people or be critical of others. I tend to worry about my health, my family, or my future. I tend to worry. I tend to be an extremist, addicting myself to unhealthy thinking or activity. I tend to be lazy. I tend to look for quick fixes and shortcuts. I tend to be defensive, rationalizing my behavior. I tend to resist help, insisting I can do things on my own. I tend to be emotional, wearing my feelings on my sleeves. I tend to be overly analytical, seeing only black and white in a world of gray. And I tend to want to control everything or figure everything out. Do any of these tendencies speak to you? I'm sure they do. We've all probably been tempted or tested with many of these. So the idea is to stop and really think about, what tendencies do I have? What's going on in my autopilot programming that just keeps replaying, that's just not doing me any good? To try to fight that autopilot with willpower and conscious effort, it's a losing battle. Okay? The subconscious mind is over 1,000,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. So consciously trying to resist or fight subconscious programming is going to stress us out and get us into that vicious circle and probably make things worse in many ways. So outsmart the habit. All right? Change one addiction, so to speak, for another. Let go of the addictions to the unhealthy habits by replacing them with addictions to successful habits. Adopt the habits of very successful people and you will be successful. Right? The recipe is fairly simple. It's just the intelligence of it that you have to embrace. All right? It's not about willpower. It's not about strength. It's not about pushing. It's really about intelligence and replacing. So that's my tip for today. Start with define, and from define we'll move on into some other secrets, if you will, of breaking unfortunate or unhealthy habits. So start with define. That's my tip for today. Come on back and I'll share some more. God bless you.